Hi there and welcome to part 8 of this Lord of the Rings project, on the final stretches now. Part 8 we're going to be doing the last two hobbits. As I said in the previous video in part 7 that we've already done the Talonflesh and given them a wash of Griffin sepia over the flesh. Did that while I did the last two hobbits. I'm going to try and stick to the same basic colours again. That's a green, a yellow, red, a blue and a grey, and then we'll mix those colours up and just to give it some sort of uniformity to the figures. So we're going to start off with this first one, and we're going to do his trousers first, and we're going to give them the lighty brown yellowy colour, which is Xandri dust. We're going to start with the Xandri dust on this one, and it's just a matter of going in and giving it a good coverage again. There's no real mystery to what we do here. I've had some really nice comments from some of you out there, and I'm really glad that you're enjoying what I'm putting on my channel at the moment. As I said, my New Year's resolution was to paint up some of all the stuff that's just been laying around and getting it out the way, just to clear some space really. My better half, she's very understanding and loves what I do. She loves seeing some of the final figures. It's very supportive over that. But what I'm going to try and do is just clear some of the space, so I'm not working on the dining room table, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So over the next couple of weeks I'm going to be doing some making a space just for me until we get the studio built in the garden, which is going to be a way off at the moment because we've got to take down trees and all sorts, so we can actually fit the new studio out there. We're going to go and do the jacket on this one in the same colour. So it's just really all I'm trying to do really with these ones this time is just mix them up, but just using the same colours, so just giving it a bit of, well, making sure that the characters are individual but they still got that uniform look to them, so you know that they're hobbits. And once I've got the studio up as well, I'll be doing some more commission work for a few people that have asked me to paint figures for them, which I'm grateful for. All that little extra work helps. Keeps the wolf from the door, so they say. So we're on the final stretch of this project now as well, and got a few ideas for the next one. but we'll put it out there and see what you guys want me to paint. Whether it be 40k, War Machine, I've even got some Infinity stuff that I bought and never got round to painting. So we're going to try and get as much of this done as possible over the next few months. Even got some 40k stuff to finish off, and some fantasy stuff as well. There's a Chaos Warrior army there to paint up, a very small one. There's also Vampire Count's army. All stuff that I've bought and thought they look really cool and never got round to painting it. So I bought some new stuff as well, some new products, which is for weathering and bits and pieces like that. So I'm going to try and do some tutorials on some weathering. See how that goes. Right guys, I'm just going to go and finish these off now. When they're base coated, we'll come back and we'll do the washes over them, and we'll take it from there. This is going to be quite a shorter video this time, but once I've got all the base coats on, we'll take it from there. Thanks a lot, guys. We're back again. So we've base coated the two remaining hobbits, and as you can see, we've given them the same colours, just mixed up on different parts of the clothing. I've given them both green cloaks, and what we're going to do now is give them a wash of the black wash I made up. So we're going to give them a wash now, and this is going to take some time to dry. So just go in with the wash, slap it on, and what this wash will do is it will get into all the little recesses on the figure. It will bring out the cloak, the trousers, the folds in all the material. It will take the colours down a little bit, but that's what we want. And then what we'll do is we'll go back in and highlight, put the base colours back in over the top, leaving all the black wash in the recesses to give us a quick shade, really. I must admit I'm really impressed with this this black wash that I made. I made it using a recipe that Les Burley put on his website on Awesome Paint Job. It is really good. Dries to a really nice matte finish, rather than the new Citadel washes, which I think leave quite a shine over your figures, and I didn't really like that on this type of figure. So making my own washes was the way to go forward, I thought. If you want to know how to make the washes, then there's always Les Burley's tutorial. Just stick to his recipe. You may need to tweak it a bit depending on what products you're using. I couldn't get some of the products that he used, so but it's a case of trial and error, really, which makes all this part of the the process the fun. Okay guys, so that's the wash put on. That's going to take a little bit of time to dry. Once that's dry, we can then start putting the base coats on and doing some highlighting. Okay guys, I will see you in the next part. Right, the wash is now dry on these two figures, guys, so we're going to start putting the base coats back over the top of them, and then we're going to highlight those base coats. So if we start with some Mecrite red here, just bring my palette back into where I can see it. So a little drop of the Mecrite red. I'm not going to need too much of this, and we'll start with that. So it's just a matter of going back in just on the very edges, leaving the wash there to do its work and create all that shading for us. So just a little touch up there, and now for this one, it's just a jacket on the lapels. Once again, just leaving all the black wash in the recesses and just bringing out the colour where the folds in the cloth are at their highest part. Just go over those bits. Too much paint on the brush there, but then again just going over, picking out the very high parts and leaving all the wash in the recesses of the folds. Where you think they would be, or where you can see they are, I should say. Just on the inside of the coat there, just a little hint of the red again, because that's going to be in shade. Excuse me. Just clean my brush off, and we can go into the next part. The next part for this will be the Fortress Grey. Not Adeptus Battle Grey, as I said in the last video. I do apologise for that, guys. Once again, just picking out the very high parts of these trousers, leaving all the wash in the folds. Just go around, making sure you got some definition left in there, and once again a little tiny bit of this for the waistcoat. Dab at the top and just down there, and again on that side. Because this paint's quite thin as well, it's going to dry lighter and blend back in quite well. The next part, excuse me, the next part will be the Zandri dust. I think I've said before, the paints that I've put into the dropper bottles already is already thinned down to a one-to-one consistency, so there's no need for me to add water to it at this stage. And all I'm really doing here is just picking out the cloth, the colour we want, and leaving the shaded colour in the recesses. So what we've got here is just the Zandri dust, just highlighting and bringing it back up to its normal colour. As you can see there, guys, I'm not sure if you can see that properly, but at the end of this project I will be taking some still photos and putting them up on the final video, so you can see all these figures in detail. The next part will be the green, and for this we will need to use some water added to it. So again, it's a one-to-one mix with the water. It's a bit more water. A little bit more. That's what we want. That's the consistency we're after. So take that, because I've mixed my paint, I'll clean my brush off a bit there, just roll my brush in, draw back, and it gives me a nice point again to go in and do all these parts of the cloth. Because it's quite thin now, it's quite easy to run along the edges of the folds. Just putting the colour back into this figure, but leaving all of the wash there in the background. Just a bit around the hood. Don't forget those bits. As I said before, this paint is very thin now, so it's going to dry a bit darker than what it looks on the cloth at the moment, but when we start putting the next layer of highlights in, the cloak will start to really pop out, really bring it to life. What we're trying to do there is just get some in the back there. There. And finally just over his shoulder part here, and the bits that go underneath his chin. There. That's looking nice now. Ooh. So same again with with this miniature as well. These two are very similar, so just using the same colours speeds up the process of the painting as well. I'll do all the front parts here. Just going along the front there. And just over his shoulder. Taking it round over the hood. Along the edges of the hood. And down over the folds. These folds are quite deep on the top of this figure here, so we're leaving the black wash right in the bottom there. Making it all shadowy. Leaving the shadows and giving the figure some contrast in its colour. And while I'm going over this, I'm looking at the figure and trying to work out where my highlights are going to be as well. So that's the 4 base coats now done. What we do now is we go around and we start to put the other highlights in, the extreme highlights. So for the red parts, we're just going to mix a bit of blood red, because this is thinned down. This will mix into the paint nicely and give us a nice blend. So right on the very edges, try and leave some of that mecrite red. Obviously try not to go into your black wash. Just a little tiny indications here and there. Not too much paint on your brush. It's not a lot you're going to need on the inside parts of this. Just a little indication here and there to let you know that it's picking up the light. Again on this one's scarf, and not too much underneath. Just to give it another colour to help those recessed parts pop out. So we're going to use the Zandri dust again, but this time we're going to mix a bit of Screaming Skull into it. Screaming Skull would be too much of a harsh highlight for that. So we just take a little bit of the Zandri dust and we're going to mix the Screaming Skull into that at a ratio of about 50-50. Wipe excess paint off the brush, go back in, pick some up, and we can now do the highlights on the jacket. And all we're trying to do is just pick up the highest points of this. You don't want too much of that because it will take away from the work that you've already done. So this one here will be on the very edge of his trousers here. And that's them done. So the next highlight we've got is the grey. To highlight the grey, all we're going to do is just mix a bit of white in with this. We take the grey, take a bit of the white, bit of water in that because I don't think it's runny enough, so we'll just take some more white into that and a little bit more grey, and there I think we've got a good colour. It's not quite grey and it's not quite white, it's more of a dirty white really is what the colour we were aiming for. But that's just over the very highlights again, very edges, just to highlight some of the folds. And just a little bit down there over his kneecap and some of those folds that are coming down the edge of his trousers there. So that's that one done, and now we've just got the waistcoat to do on this one, and again it's the very edge, so the bottom of the waistcoat and the very, very top. Just pick those out. The next one is the green, and for the green we're going to use the Catachan green again, but we're going to mix some Zandri dust in with the green, just to make it a much yellowy orange, yellowy browny green to highlight. Put some water in with that. If you're mixing colours like this, try and make sure that you mix enough to do the parts that you want. There's nothing worse than running out of the paint and then you've got to try and mix it up again and match the colour. It's happened to me a couple of times and I got the colour completely wrong. But all we're doing, because this is again thin down, it should just blend in very nicely. And we're just picking out the very edges of the cloth. So I'm not using actually too much paint on this. all we're doing is just the very edges of this, where you think the highlights are going to be. So all the highlights have been done now on the on these two figures. Just going to go in now and just give the face its highlights, just to bring it out, leaving all the wash that was originally put on, leave that all in all the recesses. I'm going to put a couple of dots of white in here as well, just for the eyes. But I managed to go over a bit, so I'm just trying to cover those up as well. We're going to go and do the hands and the feet at the same time. Again, it's just picking out the little detail of the flesh, leaving all that wash in the recesses of his fingers and on the cuffs of his cloak there. You just want to leave a bit of the wash showing through. So just highlight the feet a little bit, his toes, and just round the bottom here. Don't worry too much about the feet because, well, they're going to be dirty and muddy anyway. Let's try this one. Again, make sure your paint is thin and runs, because that's what you need for doing this. And if your paint runs, it'll make it easier to do these washes, to do these highlights. So once again, just leave the wash behind when you're doing these. Just take your time. And it'll get easier the more you do them. I was listening to a few people on YouTube, and they were saying that they only used to paint Space Marines with helmets and things like that because they found painting faces was very difficult. So that's that one done, guys. We've got the hair to do on them as well, and the swords. So we're going to go ahead and do the swords. So we'll do the hair first. I'm going to give them brown hair. So it's a little bit of Rhinox hide. This is already thinned again, so we get some of the paint on the brush. And just go in and cover the hair. Make sure you get a good even coat on the hair. Try not to go over the parts that you've already painted. last hobbit. Now just a bit of his fringe coming down. There we have it. That's the hair done. When that's dry, we'll just give that a little almost dry brush of Khemri brown. Next thing we've got to do is the swords. So we're just going to take some lead belcher for that. Bolt gun metal. I still call it bolt gun metal. It's always going to be old money to me, I'm afraid. Can't get used to these new Citadel paint names. I will do when I can't buy the other ones anymore. I actually want to try some Vallejo paints. I've heard they can get you some really good results. I suppose it doesn't matter what paint you use as long as you thin them down. Well, I'll soon find out. That's his sword done. There's no real buttons or anything on his jacket. So that's that one done. And then we're just going to take this one. And again, just run the paint up the sword. Paper opener or whatever you want to call it. Which can't be really a sword, it's more of a dagger, isn't it? Just on a little bit on there. He's going to have some buttons here, so just a couple of indications of buttons on his waistcoat. Make sure you get all the paint off from a metallic going to a normal paint. And we go into the Khemri brown. Sorry guys. I'm just going to take a bit of the Khemri brown, rub that in the palette, rub it off on the brush, on a bit of cloth, clean most of it off, and then just drag the brush over the hair, and the Khemri brown will mix in with the Rhinox hide scorched brown. And give you some highlights on the hair. And the same with this one. Again, just take your brush, rub it over. You'd be surprised how much paint is actually in these brushes when you wipe it off. You think the brush is clean, but there's a lot of paint on there still. Enough to do this type of work. So there you go guys, that's the two hobbits done. Hope you can see them. So those two are done now. All we've got to do now is base them. I'm going to go ahead and do those. It will take a while for those bases to be ready to paint, but we're still going to do them exactly the same, which is a charred and granite base coat, black wash over that when it's dry, and then Zandri dust and Ushbati bone dry brush over the top to highlight. Okay, I'm going to finish those off, guys, and I'll let you see them when they're done. Thanks a lot. Welcome back to the final part of this part number 8. That's the 2 hobbits now done, all based exactly the same way as we've done the other ones. Black around the edges of the base, and I think these 2 have come out really well. I am really pleased with these. I think they're probably 2 of my favourite parts of this project so far. So we'll bring the base in as we always do at the end of this project, and we'll put the miniatures in their positions. So there you go, guys. That's all the hobbits now done. Gandalf, Gimli, Boromir, Legolas, Sam, Frodo, Merry and Pippin. All that's left to do now is Aragorn, and that'll be that one. So we'll do Aragorn for the next one in part 9, and part 10 will just be a summary, letting you know things that I've learned, and if there's anything I would have done differently. Okay guys, I'll see you in the next one.